The title tells you that I used to pray to God. In fact, when I was a kid, I bought so into the whole organized religion of the Catholic Church that I even begged my mom to take me on a religious trip to Rome, and I shook hands with Pope John Paul II. I know. Let that sink in. I was introduced to Christianism and the Catholic Church fairly late, meaning that I wasn't baptized as a baby. I actually got baptized when I was around 8 or 10, and that's considered pretty late where I come from. We had religious or Bible studies at school too, but the only thing I remember is the lady who taught us. She was pretty violent, and she punished the boys of the class when they wouldn't keep quiet by hitting their head with the corner of our hardcover books and the Bible. I also remember that the priest of our church once told me, the kid at elementary school, that my parents will go to and burn at hell after they die because they got divorced, and apparently that was a huge sin. Now, I know that not every Catholic church is messed up like this, but ours was definitely giving out red flags, which I, as a kid, couldn't really translate. I remember that after what the priest told me, I had nightmares. I couldn't sleep for days, and I was just crying. Luckily, my mom comforted me by saying that the priest was talking crap, and God, the God we believe in, is all about unconditional love, forgiveness and caring, and not about punishing. That has put my mind at ease. And I also remember that I prayed a lot as a kid to God, to Saint Mary the Virgin, and maybe some other saints too that we learned about at school. I remember that when I prayed, I always felt listened to. I felt being heard, and I felt that I got answers too. Later on, I went to the same secondary grammar school my brother attended, because we got separated when I was maybe 3 years old, and we only met at the weekends. Him living with dad, me living with mom, and I figured that we could meet more regularly if we attended the same school. Now, this school was a religious one, but instead of a Catholic, it was Reformed, Calvinist. Without going into more details, it was a bit more down to earth. You know, the church wasn't over-decorated with gold and pictures of saints. The priests were acting and dressing like normal human beings and were allowed to marry and have a family. We were not worshipping saints and Jesus. Instead, it was all about God. For the sake of this school, I changed my religion. I wasn't forced or advised, but it felt like the right thing to do. We had to wear a uniform at certain days and celebrations, and we were advised to attend the super early morning service at church every morning before class, which I wasn't a huge fan of. I went to this school for 6 years, and I left with some bad memories, and I slowly lost my interest in going to church, to be honest. Maybe it was also the rebel in me. I always hated to be told what to do, how to do it. So the fact that we had to go to church made me hate going to church. In fact, I've never attended a service ever since, apart from some weddings and Christmas services. But I made sure that I kept myself far from organized religions and churches. It's not like I had a particular moment or negative experience that pushed me away. It was more of a slow process and a feeling of getting my freedom back. I still believed in God, but I just felt that I didn't need to go to church or pray in a certain way to connect to God. I felt that God was an energy and that it's present in everything and you can access it anywhere, anytime. I still prayed, but my perception of God started to change from this one single man-like energy to a more universal, genderless, formless, always present energy. And I started to include my deceased father in my prayers. I spoke to him and asked for his help with things. I remember that after his death, every time I called on him before going to an exam or taking any challenge in life, I immediately felt his presence, or some sort of an energy presence behind me, like if there was a protective army behind me. And I instantly felt this energy embracing me, holding me, gently but firmly pushing me forward and giving me extra power and support. Then later on, in my 30s, my prayers became more meditation-like practices. In fact, I find it hard to separate the two now. And the feeling I get during meditation or praying is this physical sensation in my spine and on top of my head, like a tingle, like if I got connected to a higher consciousness through a power cord, and I felt some electricity flowing through me. So I still maintained my connection to this higher power, but my definition of God, or my wording, started to change, and I one day had this realization that this higher power I'm talking to is actually an energy I'm also part of, and we are all part of. So in that sense, I'm also God. And God is not a separate entity to me anymore, but more like a collection of energies, which is the source for us all. And lately I started to think that when I pray to or I address this energy in my meditation, I might actually be talking to my higher self, my inner being, the energy part of my being. I haven't yet figured out how to address it, because it would feel awkward to give it my own name. Yet the word God makes it so unreachable and distant, so I still have to find a name for it. This last weekend, I was about to go cycling. But before I went, I asked for a sign from the universe. Well, as soon as I was about to get on my bike, I saw that I got a flat tire. I thought it was strange because it was still perfect the day before. But I decided to go for a walk instead. And I kind of felt cold to go visit the cemetery, which is called the church garden here. Very peaceful place with a beautiful scenery overlooking my favorite lake. I've been there a couple of times, but this was the first time I visited when the church was open for visitors, and it felt very welcoming with its entrance door left open. I stepped in. I have to tell you that if I went cycling, I wouldn't have gone in. And I'm glad I entered, because it really touched me. I had no feelings left inside me, attached to churches, so they meant nothing to me, but for some reason, the simplicity and the energy of this place really touched me. And I was alone. I decided to take a seat. I suddenly heard someone behind me walking up the stairs. It was a man. He sat down and started to play the organ, like a mini concert just for me, and I couldn't hold my tears back. I first thought to just get up and leave because I was becoming very emotional for no reason. But then I just decided to wait it out there. And it was a great decision. I felt that my tears were a release of something. I couldn't quite figure out what, but it felt like spending a good hour at a therapist. And at the end of the session, I felt so relieved, so much lighter and happier, like this something had to just pour out of me. I felt so grateful for being there, for getting a flat tire in the morning, which was clearly the sign I asked for. It guided me to this church, right? And I felt so grateful for the organ player, for the music and my ability to enjoy it, for the whole energy around me, for having the possibility to be there and enjoy this moment all alone in peace and harmony. I didn't have to say a word. I didn't have to listen to any priest talking. I didn't even need to pray. Just be present. take it all in, and let it heal me from the inside. I don't pray to God anymore. I get connected to higher consciousness instead. Maybe the same thing, to be honest. And I do it through meditation or sometimes just by thinking of getting connected. And I ask for a sign or an answer to a question or just clarity on something. And it comes. It always comes. I just have to be open and receptive enough to hear it or feel it. Do you pray? Who do you address your prayers to? How do you define God? Share with me in the comment section. If you want a more intimate content and daily communication, please go and join my Facebook group called Kinga Kramer and Friends.